Valorant's been around for over 3 years now, and it's added way too many new agents since then, which are all very different in their abilities. That's why today, we're going to be taking a look at 3 of the best mechanics for every agent in Valorant. Skye is a supportive agent through and through, but she can still carry hard on her own when her abilities are used properly, so she can make the most out of them. Now, most people's instincts will be to turn away from a Skye flash, so you can bait them into looking elsewhere by sending your bird out, but not actually flashing it. Then you can shoot them when they're not even looking. Your dog can sometimes spot the enemy's locations even if you don't directly see them on screen. This is why the best Skye players look at minimap instead while dogging and spastically moving it around to cover as many angles as possible. If you miss her voice line for her flash and worry about whether you blinded someone or not, don't worry. The bird itself actually cries out differently depending on if you flashed someone or not. Yoru, an agent that's considered by many to be the worst in the entire game. But if you use these mechanics properly, you can make some pretty good plays with them. You can use your clone to boost yourself so you can get your teleport into higher spots. And speaking of Yoru clone, you can also use it to fake footsteps to fool enemies. 30 seconds. When you have your ultimate, don't forget to buy a shorty. This is because the shorty has the fastest equipping time and you can use it quickly after you get out of your ult, netting you a free kill and possibly even a free gun. And with Astra on the other hand, you can put down a star just near the spike in the post plant, then use your gravity well on it to interrupt the defuse, making them vulnerable. You can knife through your ultimate. You can fake smoke by placing your stars in normal smoke spots but recalling them instead, letting you fight enemies that might not be ready for the smoke to go down so quickly. Kayo may be known as the agent that has one of the worst solo queue win rates in Valorant, but these tips might just help you beat that statistic. Use the alternate throw of your flash for pop flashes, as it goes off much faster than the left click. Kayo's molly has the same trajectory as a bunch of other abilities. If you already know Killjoy molly lineups, you can use the same ones on his molly and they'll work most of the time. On the other hand, his molly also has the same trajectory as a Viper smoke orb. This means that you can use Viper's orb in custom to find lineups for his molly. It's much easier since Viper's orb shows its landing spot on the map in custom. Now, despite all the nerfs Chamber has gotten, there's no denying that he can be incredibly strong in the right circumstances. There's still a whole lot of things he can do with his one teleport anchor, so here's some tips on how to use it right. You can use Chamber's teleport ability for free as many times as you want during the buying phase, so don't forget to get onto high places and crazy off angles before the round starts. You can switch to your headhunter quickly after you fire one bullet with your ultimate to both animation cancel and also to be able to fire a shot quickly. Your teleport doesn't care about verticality, so you can go as high or low as you want with it, which can make for some great teleport spots, like down in Tunnel and Fracture. Neon is known for her crazy movement options and how impossible it is to hit her, but her high gear isn't everything. Her other skills are just as important when it comes to playing her to her highest potential. Neon's ultimate resets her slide, so you can use her slide right before you use her ultimate to essentially double slide. Her wall works like a projectile, so remember to aim a little higher so that it can go as far as possible. You don't want to accidentally get a sad little wall just because you aimed at the ground. It doesn't matter how high you throw your stun, as it'll always bounce back to the ground anyway, letting you stun enemies from far away. Fade mains always tend to end up using all their skills on a single target. I get it, but if you're going to util spam, then at least do it right with these 3 important fade mechanics to keep in mind. You can let her haunt and seize drop early by pressing on their respective keybinds again. You don't need to control her prowler all the way through a straight area. It'll keep moving on its own in one direction until it finds a target or fades away. Remember that your ultimate deafens people and decays their health by 75, so you can rush in quickly and get your free kills without them ever knowing you were there. Harbor was once considered the worst agent in the game, but time has thankfully proven people wrong. Even with a kit so geared for aggressive pushes, there's still some things he can do to change up the tempo on his own. The speed of your ultimate is determined by you standing still, moving forward, or moving backward while casting it. You can throw your cove straight up just before peeking so it can land right after you swing, letting you get information or maybe even a kill in before you can use the smoke to flood out. You can stop your high tide early by pressing on its keybind again. Gekko's been out for months now, but it still seems like so many people don't know how to play him properly. His kit is based all around rechargeability, and these tips might just help you utilize that more. Are you really using Dizzy right if you only use the ability once per round when it's rechargeable? Instead of throwing it out there to fall into an area where it can't be picked up again, you could instead send it straight up from behind cover so that it falls right at your feet and you can pick it back up safely. Don't be too eager to send Wingman to plant before your team clears sight. It's not an entry ability, it should come after your duelist makes space. If your Thrash doesn't find anyone on its first use, don't worry, you provided information already. Just guide it back as near to you as possible so you can safely pick it up and use it later for actually detaining enemies. A lot of people misunderstand key aspects of Deadlock's abilities, so she may look weaker than one would normally think. Instead of treating her sound sensor like a worst trip, you could instead treat it like a trap. Put it in areas where there's guaranteed to be sound, like in common plant spots or choke points, so you can stun them to delay. Your ultimate can bounce off walls and even the ceiling. Your wall is one of the best ways to delay and buy time, so wait until you get information before using it. Brimstone's kit may be as old-fashioned as he is, but even he can pull out some new tricks, especially with his ultimate. When you're on site trying to protect the spike in the post plant and getting pushed hard, you're not as helpless as you may think. You can look straight up into an open sky and shoot your molly there, and it'll land back down in a couple of seconds. If you can pull this off, you can delay the defuse for an additional 8 seconds and get a better chance at winning the round. Don't just use your ultimate randomly and pray to get a kill. Ask your teammates to throw flashes or stuns for you so that it has a bigger chance of hitting. If they don't want to, you just need to change your strategy. Instead, try to use it to force people to go into small areas or out of them into the open so you can shoot them down easier. And speaking of his ultimate, it's so loud that you can actually use it to freely run around and reposition while it's ongoing. And a small secret about Brimstone's ultimate is that if you have full HP and you stand on the edge of your own ultimate, it won't kill you even after it ends. So be sure to use this to your advantage to make risky defuses. It's safe to say that Phoenix isn't as strong anymore since most people know how to play around him, but he can still do well in the right maps with a few key mechanics to keep in mind. Your molly will always fall at the edge of your sound circle if you run and aim slightly upwards, so you can be more precise with it without having to learn lineups. You can use your ultimate right before a Raze ultimate hits you in order to nullify it. Instead of flashing in the direction you want to peek into, you could instead flash in the opposite direction so that it pops behind you as you peek out. It's basically the same flash, except you don't have to wait for it to pop before you can swing without getting blinded. From Pocket Sage to Battle Sage, there are plenty of tricks that are already known to the player base due to how popular she is as a pick. The best Sage players, however, would find a way to balance these two sides with some tricks up their sleeves. Some Sage slows cover a large area of the map even though they land in similar spots, which is why some lineups are actually necessary. Sage can revive herself in a custom game by turning on auto respawn, dying while inside the map, then walking up to her own dead body and using her ultimate on it. Instead of grimwalling, which can be kind of expected these days, you can instead create a little pocket to hide in by the side of your wall. Most enemies won't expect you there and won't think to clear you, giving you plenty of free kills. Sova is notoriously one of the most difficult agents to play, as it's so easy to use his abilities wrong. But if you manage to get him right, then you can be one of the most annoying people to fight against. In a good way. Just like a lot of other AoE abilities, Sova's Shock Dart deals more damage in the center than along the edge. The maximum height of your drone depends on the height of the surface it's hovering over, so remember to jump and use your drone from behind taller walls or cover so that it can go higher. Sova's Recon Bolt and Shock Darts have the exact same physics in-game, so it's a lot easier to practice Shock Dart lineups using your Recon Bolt instead so you can see exactly where they land for a longer period of time. Viper can be a difficult agent to play if you aren't prepared with good lineups and fuel management. With these mechanics in mind though, she can become the easiest agent to play even with barely any practice. When you have the fuel to put your orb back up but can't because it's on cooldown, you can easily reset it by picking it back up and putting it down again. You can land any lineup in a pinch as long as there's nothing in the way. Ping where you want your molly to land, then start running in the direction of it while looking straight up in the sky while you have your molly out. When your sound circle meets the ping, throw your molly. You don't have to manually pick up Viper's orb and reset the round to get back her wall in a custom game if you're just testing out setups. enemies. You can hold the keybind for them from anywhere on the map, and you can get them back that way. Cypher's trips are the bread and butter of his kit. They have global range and provide information whether or not they're still up, and is arguably his strongest ability, so it's incredibly important to get them right. With that being said, here's some tips that can help with that. The optimal height for Cypher's trips can be achieved by crouching in front of where you want to put it and putting the tripwire so that it goes right through your head. That way, enemies can't jump over it or crouch under it without any movement abilities shooting it or triggering the trip. That said, there are some instances where it's better not to do that. During a fast execute, the enemies are likely to clear as many angles as possible and making a lot of noise. In that situation, you can put your trip inside the site itself and put it as low to the ground as possible so they walk over it without knowing, and you can get an easy kill even when your sight is getting rushed. The tag from Cypher's camera can actually open the teleporter doors on bind if you shoot it through the teleporter. Even though Reyna's kit is pretty straightforward, you can still do a few neat little tricks with her abilities that can give her the upper hand in the pure gunfight she often finds herself in. You can cancel your dismiss early, messing with people's timings when they don't expect you to re-peek so quickly. When there's already an orb available and you need both a dismiss and a heal, you can use your ultimate right before picking it up so you can do both and go invisible. Remember to aim your leer high up on open areas or close to the ground in closed spaces to displace enemies' crosshairs when they try to shoot it. Killjoy is arguably the best sentinel in the current meta, and some of these mechanics are exactly why she's so strong. You can place your mollies behind walls or in hidden spots so that they don't get shot as easily. Your turret has incredible line of sight, so be sure to use it to cover large areas. Some turrets can even allow you to leave an entire chunk of the map completely empty. You can technically silent drop from an elevated area by placing your turret underneath you just before you land. Playing Breach is all about using your abilities in tandem with your teammates' abilities for some explosive util dumps. But did you know that one of Breach's best teammates is actually himself? You can use your aftershock or stun right after your flash so that they can hit more easily. You can use the final part of your ultimate as a little boost to get up onto higher places if you jump at the right time. Your aftershock has a decent amount of range, so you can stay back as you use it. Omen players should always be ready to use his abilities to get into some of the riskiest positions to make a play. After all, controllers are masters of mind games, and Omen just so happens to be the trickiest one to deal with due to his teleport ability. When on defense, your paranoia can absolutely dismantle executes just with some good positioning. Instead of playing in any spot you want, try to play perpendicular to the enemy's entry paths, like for example behind the box on Haven C. You can pick up the spike from any part of the map using your ultimate. Just use it on top of the spike, then cancel. So you can actually Omen clone using your teleport by using it on the ground at your feet just before you peek out of a smoke, confusing the enemies and letting you know where they are before you properly swing out to kill them. Jett has long been known as one of the most controversial agents of all time, and there's no shortage of ways to play her and still get good results. You can silent drop from any height on Jett by hitting spacebar to use her glide passive just before she hits the ground. While it may look cool to tap heads with her ultimate while flying in the air, sometimes trying to track headshots in a really chaotic situation just makes things harder for you. Since her knives reset after a kill anyway, some of the best Jett players in the world just keep tapping away as soon as their crosshair is on an enemy's body and adjust their aim as they go. You should make it a reflex to smoke yourself off, especially when the fight gets hectic. Not only is it a moment to breathe, but it also gives you more options when it comes to angles to fight from or places to reposition to. A lot of people misunderstand Raze's kit and think it's incredibly simple. So here's 3 satchel tips to really elevate not just your Raze gameplay, but your creativity as well. Your satchels are useful for more than just entrying. If you know an enemy is in a close corner, you could fight them by sticking the satchel there to bounce them a bit and throw off their crosshair and shot accuracy just before you kill them. In a similar vein, you can use your satchels to wide swing and catch enemies off guard or even to disengage from a fight quickly. You can animation cancel your ultimate by putting down a satchel, letting you use it much earlier and also synergizing well with using ultimate and double satchels to entry sight and get an easy kill.